3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Welcome to the Remote Photography Podcast. In this episode, I speak with Scarlot about her remote photography experiences. Enjoy the podcast. Hi Scarlot, thanks for doing the podcast. If people don't know who you are, can you give us a brief introduction, please?
Hi, I'm Scarlot Rose. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I am a professional model and content creator.
So with obviously the last year not being able to shoot in person, how did you find out about remotes? Was it online or had photographers approached you to do some remotes?
I think I probably saw it online somewhere, but as I do a lot of self-portrait work anyway, I've been using the kind of same setup to shoot a lot of my own work for years now, and I've kind of spent a lot of time refining the process of how best to shoot. So as soon as I sort of saw somebody doing a remote shoot, it kind of seemed quite an interesting thing to try, and I was quite well set up to give it a go.
So you mentioned you were more or less already set up. What's your current setup for doing remote shoots?
So I shoot all my self-portraits on my own Canon camera using the EOS software, which I think has become quite a common thing for people doing remote shoots. A lot of people seem to use a very similar kind of setup. So I have lighting equipment at home, I have tripods and that kind of thing, and I connect my camera up to my laptop, connect my laptop up to a hard drive, and I'm able to shoot everything and save it directly onto the hard drive whilst giving the photographer a view as though they were looking through the camera.
And how do you do all the communications over Zoom, or do you have like a phone so they can get a rough idea of what the location looks like?
So I tend to discuss quite a lot of things before the shoot, because one of the great things with home shoots is that I can do any setup preparation, set building that I might need to do for any specific photographer. So often that kind of stuff is discussed in advance and pictures are sent backwards and forwards. But during the shoot, I do everything via either Zoom or some online video platform, so that they can take control of my laptop, effectively taking control of the camera.
So from the remote shoots you've done, whereabouts have you had photographers shoot from? Have some been from America or a lot been from the UK?
I've had a couple of people abroad. Most have been in the UK, and people that I've worked with before that I would have been working with during this time in person, but have been unable to do so. But a couple of people from New York, America. It's quite interesting because the time zones are very different, and it's places that I would love to go and visit to be able to shoot, but haven't been able to. So it's quite interesting that it's really broadened the horizons for who I can work with and who I can create with.
So let's take an example of a remote shoot. We did one way back when, almost like, what was it, Lockdown 1 or something like that? I can't remember.
Yeah.
And I know you'd built some sets, but we literally shot all our shots in almost one room, wasn't it? It was like we just turned the camera a little bit to show one set, then we shot against the wall. So just give us a little bit of how you go about, say, making one room be like several different sets.
Yeah, so I do a lot of, as I said, kind of content creation, whether that is videos or picture sets or whatever, for my own online platforms such as like OnlyFans and ManyVids and that kind of thing. So I'm quite used to having my house set up in various ways to maximise the amount of sets that I can get into one small space, which works also very well for photography purposes. So I try and set up a room where I think if I have the camera fairly central in the room and I can just turn it around various angles, what can be seen and what can't be seen, and where can one set kind of start and finish, and can it move into the next set, or do I need to keep them separate, and try and consider like the natural light and where that is falling in the room, and places that I might need to add in fill lights or use entirely not natural lighting. More like studio equipment. So yeah, I just kind of try and basically fit as much as I possibly can into one space, but try and keep it all as different as possible at the same time.
Yeah, because there was a few sets we did, like say and I can't say the word now. Say the androgynous one where you were like in a white shirt and suit, and then it was like a was it a jumpsuit? I can't remember. It was like a one-piece suit, and that was just shot against the wall. But I think people, when they looked at it, they thought that could have been easily shot in the studio because the way you'd set up the lights, the background, and everything.
Yeah, so I was quite conscious of this whenever I move house. I'm always very conscious of the photographic potential in the house. And in this house particularly, I painted one of the walls a particular shade of grey that I think is quite similar to a lot of photography backdrops. And because it's just a plain wall and because the light is falling in a nice direction, I think if you get the appropriate distance away from the wall, you don't know that it is a wall. It could be a kind of a studio background anywhere, really. And I think it's just about kind of learning how to make the most of the equipment that I have and the space to make it look like it's much bigger than it is. I'd love to have access to a full studio during the lockdown period to, just shoot as much as I possibly could. But it's been quite a nice challenge to see what I can fit in a small home space.
I was going to ask, because obviously being limited to not a lot of locations, it's made you be very creative and having to build different sets or different looks for each photographer. It's something that I enjoy doing anyway. I think it's one of the reasons that I kind of got into taking my own self-portraits and making my own content is because I like that element of set design and creating something and coming up with an idea and then bringing it to life. So it's been quite exciting to be able to focus more on that side of things. Because often when you go to a studio, you might look around and move a few things, but you kind of often go with what is already there. Whereas when it's in my own space and I've got all the time in the world to do whatever I need to do, I often, browse social media or Pinterest or things, get an idea of something that I might like and then see what I can do with the space that I have. A lot of my self-portraits particularly feature a lot of my plants. I love plants, so I really enjoy bringing them into a set and making something. I guess it's because I love shooting outdoors, and I can't do that at the moment. So anything that I can do to make it feel more natural and earthy, I really enjoy that kind of thing. With remote shoots, obviously the pace is a bit slower than in-person shoots. Did you find that easier to adapt? Because obviously you said you do your own self-content. Was that something that felt natural, or did you have to adjust to that?
I think at first I didn't realise how much more energy it would require from my end. So in a studio, just working purely as the model, I really enjoy doing 8-hour shoots or kind of full day shoots. Whereas I realised that when I'm doing the modelling, but I'm also altering the sets and I'm also moving the camera around and I'm communicating with the photographer, but not in person via a video stream, I found all of that is surprisingly exhausting. I think you just have to think of so many more things and almost preempt what the photographer wants to be able to think about the options, because obviously from this end I can see everything that's available and the photographers can't. So I'm constantly thinking about, do I need to bring in another light? Should I suggest that I've got this prop? Should I suggest this? Should I suggest that? Whereas if we were in a studio, the photographer could just look around and, do a lot of that side of things. So I guess kind of taking on the role of doing so many more things, I found, especially at first, to be really, really tiring, and definitely realised quite quickly that there's an optimum level of time. And like you say, things do take quite a bit longer because you've got to discuss things quite a lot more and move the camera a little bit and then try something else a little bit more, and it can take a while to set things up. So I've sort of found that anything 2 hours or less is just not really enough to get into the flow and really get going, and by that point you're kind of in the prime of the shoot, and then you have to finish it, whereas doing 8 hours can just be so exhausting. And I have quite a lot of health problems as well, so I find that to do an 8-hour shoot often means that I am completely unwell for the next few days. So it's been a kind of an interesting balance of trying to balance physical health and energy levels with really giving the photographer the most that I can. So I found kind of 4 to 6 hours to be the ideal amount of shooting time. But yeah, it's definitely been quite a change from working in a studio. So
with social media, did you find it was easier to say you were doing remote shoots with, say, the Facebook groups, or did you find that was easier to just do it on your website or through your social media?
To be honest, as I said, I've had quite a lot of health problems over the last year, which has limited the amount of physical shooting that I can do. So I've not actually had to do all that much promotion. I guess because I usually plan so far in advance, there are a lot of people that wanted to work with me and we couldn't do that in person. So just talking to them one-on-one, it became quite a natural progression to just move that to a virtual shoot. And I think once people see that you've done 1 or 2 virtual shoots, more people seem to approach asking for that. So I have used social media a little bit to share a couple of results from virtual shoots, I guess, to kind of put out there that I do them, but it's been a bit less on the advertising side than with in-person shoots, which has actually been quite nice. Though I know that a lot of people that I have shot with do use the Facebook groups and that kind of thing, and it seems to have built quite a nice community and got creative people in touch with each other and all kind of working out how to keep being creative with all these limitations of, you know, not being able to meet other people in person. So I do think the social media side of it it's brought out quite a different side of photography, and it's, I think, brought a lot of people together, which is really nice.
Yeah, especially in these times, So with doing a remote shoot or even an in-person shoot, how is the best way for a photographer to get what they want across to you? Is like mood boards, just for an email or just for a message?
I think mood boards absolutely help, without a doubt. They are the easiest way to convey ideas. And I think some people are a bit hesitant about mood boards because they say, oh, I don't want to copy somebody else's ideas, which is a very justifiable thought. But I don't think I've ever really recreated an image that I've seen, you know, like for like. And it made me feel perhaps a little uncomfortable to do so unless there was unless it was for a book or a publication or something where it's the same photographer and recreating their own work with different people. So I think that having a mood board can often just really create an emotion to work from, or a lighting style, or I think they can be used for so many different elements, and you might share an image, but from that one image you take the lighting, and then from a different image you take a styling idea, from a different image you take a set kind of idea, and you sort of look at things that inspire you and you bring them all together to create something that's actually quite original and unique, even though you've been inspired by other people. So I think that is one of the easiest ways to convey what you are looking to shoot, and also an easy way to kind of convey the photographer's expectations, that I could immediately either say, yeah, we can definitely do that, or actually that one probably we can't do that because it requires a lot more height, or it's quite easy to see where the problems might be early on. But equally, if somebody is very good at being quite detailed in their descriptions, then messaging can work just as well, often combined with a couple of photos or a walk around video of my shooting space to give them an idea. That can help if they want to only talk via messaging and not share any kind of imagery. But I definitely say my preference is somebody that kind of comes to me and says, these are all the things that I enjoy. How can we work together to create something out of this kind of mood or atmosphere?
Well, it's also as well that you can look at the pictures and think, oh, I've got an outfit that would work with what you're trying to, the kind of vibe you're going for in the mood board. So that I would say that definitely helps as well,
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the benefits of shooting from home is that I have all of my wardrobes immediately available to me. But it can also in some ways be a bit of a hindrance, because some photographers seem to think, oh, well, you have everything that you could possibly need there, so we'll just wing it on the day. And whilst I can see what I have here, it'll take me hours to go through and describe every single item or show them on a video, by which point, we're 3 hours into the shoot and I still haven't even put an outfit on. So I think definitely having an idea up front is really helpful. And I can make sure that, I always, when I go to a shoot in a studio, I always bring a full suitcase, even if I know I'm only going to need 5 outfits, because sometimes what I might have in my head is slightly different to what the photographer has in their mind, and maybe what you thought was going to work in one place might not. So even on a remote shoot, I like to prepare more outfits than I'm going to need, but I don't want to mid-shoot have to pull out an outfit that might need to then be ironed and take up that kind of time. So I think planning in advance really is good for making the most of the time that we have on the shoot to actually concentrate on getting the right images, because we could just spend forever on styling.
Yeah, and it's also as well, and then you're in your mind, okay, this set we're doing this, look, the next set we're doing this, and I guess you feel a bit more relaxed because you know what is ahead.
Yeah, I do quite like to, I'm quite a planner. I like to have an idea in my head of, what's coming up, what we're going to do in each place, because sometimes as the shoot starts, you might even think, okay, we're going to do this on this set, and we're going to wear this shirt on this other set. And as you're shooting and you kind of get an idea of what the photographer likes and it doesn't like so much, your ideas as you go along might change. And if I already know what you're wanting on the next shoot, I can kind of be thinking a little bit about, oh, actually, what if we added in this, and that might make it even better. Whereas if I've got no idea from one shoot to the next what's happening, it's harder to give the photographer more options.
Yeah, because I think with ours, using ours as an example, you started to bring in like jewellery and stuff as well to add little bits to it. So it wasn't just your standard pictures that looked like fashion or editorial. It was, say, like you had an old-fashioned camera, because I happened to mention, oh, do you have a camera? And you went, yes, I do. And then you went and grabbed it, and then you sort of accessorized, like with gold chains and stuff like that, just to make it a bit more creative. So it wasn't just like you standing there with, say, like the one I called a photographer, with your shirt slightly open with the camera. You added like necklace, bracelets and stuff like that, just to give it that more oomph.
Yeah, and I think it's those kind of small finishing touches that can really take an image from being an okay image to being a really fantastic image where everything has been thought about. And I kind of knew that we were going to wear a shirt and trousers, but I didn't really know what else. So then on the day we could be like, okay, let's try this. Does this work? Yes, no. Oh, what about if we swap these earrings out? And yeah, I think being able to have an idea in mind before you start then allows you to play around and add more things and just get a bit more creative with it.
I definitely found it one of the, because when I shot you, it was like literally the first handful I'd done. And even though it was a really long shoot, which I realised tired you out because we had to split it into two, so you had a lunch break, which I do with everyone, by the way. I don't make people work 8 hours straight and not give them a break. I would give you, like, say, the mood board and then a bit of an idea, and you would run with it. You would literally, like, I think I could see you getting excited because your brain was ticking over, and it was like, oh, I can move the plant here, or I can move the chair here, and I can use the camera to be like an accessory. So I think it's one of those things where, even though, as we say, it was limited to mostly one room, I could see you were enjoying the process.
Yeah, I think that's one of the parts about modelling that I enjoy the most anyway, to be honest, is I really love when somebody comes to me with an idea and they're kind of thinking about this thing, and you can tell that it's been like they've spent some time thinking about it, and then being able to take that and bring it to life and then add to it and really run with it. And it's such a wonderful feeling to kind of collaborate with other creative people. And often I find that is almost like a snowball effect of the photographer starts with one idea, and then I think, oh, what if we did this? And then they think, what if we added this? And it suddenly just takes an idea that was a good idea to begin with and really elevates it to the next level. And I think whether it's in a studio or on a remote shoot, it's that kind of bringing an idea to life and taking something that started off as just a seedling of an idea and creating it into a piece of artwork. Or I really love that side of it. It really makes me feel very creative and gives me a lot of energy and enthusiasm.
So hopefully with in-person shooting coming back in the next few months at the time of this recording, do you see being able to offer remote, either, say, at home still, but maybe if you're touring or in a studio or even on events, do you think that's going to be an option you'll be able to offer to photographers?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to preempt what is going to happen too much in the coming year or whatever. But I think being able to do remote shoots has definitely changed my opinion on modelling quite dramatically and really changed my relationship with modelling.
Okay.
It's definitely given me a lot more freedom to consider the parts about modelling that I absolutely love and the parts that actually I was doing but just wasn't enjoying as much as I could have done. So it's given me a lot more thought of if and when I can go back to shooting in person, what are the things that I definitely want to continue with and what are the things that I'm less interested in. So it's really quite nice to have had a time to step away from modelling in person, do a lot of self-reflection and come back to it. I think that will put me in the best place to be, the most creative that I can be. But I think it is also a nice concept that when you're traveling, sometimes you do come across these incredible apartments or a beautiful hall or, some kind of incredible location. Yeah. But unfortunately, the only people that can shoot with you there are the people that are either willing to travel to get there or happen to live locally. And I think being able to offer remote shoots whilst traveling will allow for a lot more people to create with me in places that they otherwise might not get to shoot with. So I'm quite excited for that side of things.
Yeah, because especially I don't think traveling is going to be, well, especially for photographers in other countries, is going to be an option, at least for this year. So maybe a model offering remote still is like letting her work with other photographers in different countries.
Yeah. And I think whilst a lot of people have been asking me, whether they can book shoots with me now for when things supposedly open up, and I've got a lot of people asking me for when will I be doing duo work, or when will I be doing a lot of these things that we're not currently able to do. And honestly, it worries me a little bit, because I think as soon as things open up, there will be so many people that have been unable to do anything, so they really want to go out there and they want to shoot everything that they've been unable to do, and whether that be duos or groups of people or group events, and suddenly that takes it from carefully working with one photographer, calculating the risk, assessing the the risk profile of the situation, or maybe they worked with 17 people this week. And so now I'm not only putting myself at risk of meeting one person, I'm putting myself at risk of meeting 17 people and all of their networks. And suddenly the risk goes from meeting one person to being infinite. And whilst hopefully COVID will eventually no longer be an issue, I'm very, very concerned about how that's going to happen. If I feel a bit like, it's going to be at the horse races where the gates open and everything just charges out. And I'm really concerned about the impact that will have, especially now that I have developed health problems, autoimmune diseases and other things. It means that I have to be really, really careful now about my health. So I think it will allow me to be much more considerate about who I work with in person, what their risk profile is, whether it matches with my risk profile. And for other people that are wanting to shoot, but I'm not able to do so, I can still shoot with them virtually and be able to keep things going that way. So I think having the option of virtual shooting both during lockdown and out of lockdown, I think is going to be, I think it is really beneficial and is quite a game changer for being able to keep people creative and making work.
Thanks, Scarlett, for doing the podcast. So where can people find you on the internet?
So the current place that I'm posting the most is, of course, onlyfans.com/Scarlot Rose. I always spell my name Scarlot, which gets a little confusing. Most people spell it with an E. I also create a lot of my own content for scarlotrose.manyvids.com. But if you want to book me for professional photography and not just see the content that I create myself, you can look me up on Purpleport. I'm there as Scarlot Rose. I am on Instagram as Scarlot_Rose, Facebook, Twitter, all kind of social media channels. Search for Scarlot Rose, and I believe I'm the only person that spells my name this way, so it's pretty easy to find me. And if you would like to listen to more of my rambling thoughts, join me for my podcast episode as well. You search for Lingerie Lowdown, the podcast. You'll see that I own my own series called Scarlet's Secrets. So come and join me for some more rambles there as well.
So did you find, I'm not going to use so because I keep using that at the beginning of every sentence. That's stupid. When you start doing podcasts, you realise you say a lot of words over time and you don't know you do it.